Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Retold, a Harry Potter podcast. This is a show for Potter fans of all sorts to tune in and have fun living in the wizarding world just a little more. My name is Barry, and every week I sit down with a new guest host and we go through the Harry Potter books 2 chapters at a time. We also have some fun segments filled with trivia, deep lore, movie changes, and favorite lines. And at the very end of the episode, we have a spoiler section called the Restricted Section. Ooh. This week, we will be covering chapters 9 and 10 of the Chamber of Secrets, and I am joined by a brand new guest, Taylor, or you may know her as Universally Taylor on social media. She has a wonderful Harry Potter and Universal Park themed social media that if you're into that sort of thing, you should definitely check it out. And I will, of course, leave her info in the show notes of this episode so you can go support her. The only house housekeeping things for this week is to remind y'all that I lost track of the Quizlet score several times this season. I thought I was doing a lot worse than what I was, and I said I was losing by a lot during this episode. But in reality, I'm only down by 1 point. Not too bad for me, right? But anyway, the score as it stands currently is 6-7 with guests in the lead. And you will see what the new score is at the end of this week's Quizlet section. Also, this week, I just want to give a shout out to the country of Australia. That seems a little random, Barry. It is, but I noticed this week on the stats for this podcast, I had the same amount of plays from Australia as I did in America. So thank you guys, my friends from down under. Appreciate you. And yeah, it's been really cool. I'm seeing this podcast grow a lot, getting messages, looking at the numbers rise, and it's really encouraging. So I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for checking out this podcast, for sharing it with your friends. Please continue to do so. Rate it if you can on whatever app you use. I'm so excited for the rest of this season. We have tons of really cool podcasters and Potter influencers coming on. So it's going to be a fun time. So anyway, that's all I got. Feel free to reach out to me if you want. You can send me a comment, Aller post, or howler by emailing me at theretoldpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can send me a message on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. Time for the episode. Enjoy.
1, 2, 3. Expelliarmus!
I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise and pretending that I don't exist.
Oh dear, we are in trouble.
Where have you been? You shall not harm Harry Potter. 50 points and it goes to her head.
I strongly recommend caution.
Scared Potter.
You wish.
I didn't know you could read.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Retold, the podcast where I retell you my favorite story of all time, Harry Potter. This week, we'll be talking about chapters 9 and 10 from Chamber of Secrets, The Writing on the Wall, and The Rogue Bludger. But first, before we get into that, I'm never on this journey alone. With me today, I have my guest host, Taylor. Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm so freaking excited to have you on here. This is sick.
I'm pretty excited too.
Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know, I'll throw Taylor in just a sec, but Taylor is so awesome to just like hop on this podcast. I've messaged her on Instagram because she has a really cool page about Universal and Harry Potter, but I'll let her tell you more about that. Taylor, could you let us know a little bit of what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Taylor and I basically share all things Harry Potter and Universal. I absolutely love the parks. So in my little corner of the internet, you'll find from Harry Potter to Universal to Islands of Adventure to Epic Universe all in one little spot.
Love that. I love see, I'm torn up on this podcast because I want to talk about the chapters, but I also want to talk about Universal because I'm so obsessed with Universal. I remember my wife and I, when we had our season passes, we went like probably 10 times in the course of 2 or 3 years and no regrets at all. No regret. It was absolutely amazing.
You feel like you're stepping into the movies, don't you?
I really do. Sometimes I don't even want to get on a ride. I just want to sit and vibe. I just want to hang out there.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we get into talking more Harry Potter, Epic Universe. Is it as epic as they say?
It's insanely epic. It's about as epic can get, I'll tell you.
I hate that.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
The only solace I'm taking right now, so we're recording this at the beginning of the summer. The only solace I'm taking right now is that it's going to be super hot and super crowded right now, or at least when they first open it up. I'm going to go, I think, at least I'm planning to, in September or October. And I'm like, it'll be much cooler than I went last year in May for the first time in May. And I was like, I'm never coming back
Yeah, it's
during
hot.
May again. It was so hot. But that's awesome. I'm so excited for it. But I'm also excited for this podcast. So let's hop into it.
Let's do it.
My first question for you, what I do with all my guest hosts, we open up talking about your fandom ID. And so for listeners at home, our fandom ID is this concept where we ask the guest their what house they are in, their favorite movie, their favorite book, and how did they get into Harry Potter. So Taylor, hit us with it.
Yes. So my Hogwarts house is Gryffindor. I would say my favorite movie is probably, I'd have a hard choice between the first or third. Those two always just, there's nothing quite like watching the first movie. My favorite book would probably be maybe the third one. And then I got into this fandom during the pandemic. I had never really been a big TV watcher, and there was nothing else for me to really do. So I started with Harry Potter, and I absolutely fell in love with everything Harry Potter. My whole life revolved around Harry Potter during the entire pandemic. And then it's led me to just about as much as anything Harry Potter around me. And I go to the parks all the time because of it. So it's just completely immersed my life with the fandom.
That's awesome. So listeners can't even see because this isn't at the moment. It's not a visual podcast, but Taylor in her like home office or wherever she is, she has so many awesome and cool Harry Potter things behind her. Like I see there's a Lego Hedwig she's built, a Lego burrow. Oh my God. By the way, this is a question I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
If you could build any like extra Wizarding World thing at Universal, what would it be?
That's a really good question. I think if I could build any Wizarding World thing, it would probably be the burrow.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because I was like, you need a big enough place and you need something that could potentially have a ride with it. And I was like, you could have the Fort Anglia be the ride that you do there.
That would be awesome. Or maybe Hagrid's hut. I have a really soft spot for Hagrid, so that might be cool to see something life-sized.
Or make it even just like preposterously big, you know? So you're walking around as this tiny little person in this big old hut.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
All right, so we got your fandom ID. You're a Gryffindor. All right, we haven't had too many Gryffindors come on the podcast yet, so way to represent.
Yes, proud Gryffindor.
And so here we go. The next thing, we are getting into our Quizzitch section. So this is the part of the show where I will ask you some questions about the chapter and you'll ask me some questions. At the moment, I think I'm losing. Like, and the way that it works is like throughout the whole each season. So I call one book a season. I keep track of the score. And at the end of last book, I ended up winning by like a half a point. It was glorious. Wow. It was amazing. Yes, I'm so amazing. You know this. It's all wonderful. And the world cheered, even though they lost. And so my guests represent the world. So you are representing the world right now, and I am just me. So it's me versus the world, and we will see who knows more about book 2. It's a new challenge, and I'm off to a rough start. I think in the last episode, I had John from First Time Readers. It's another Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings podcast, and he crushed me. It was like 3-1. It was a bad one. So anyway, let's see what happens after this one. You have to carry the torch and keep up the lead.
I hope I can do that.
So how about you ask me your question first?
Okay, so starting off, this one's pretty easy. Okay. What is the message that's written on the wall?
Okay, I'm wanting to get it exactly right.
Okay.
The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air beware.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Fantastic. Okay. So
you're off to a good start.
Yep. So this one's kind of hard.
Oh, great.
But there are plenty of answers. So I thought this might be somewhat fair because of all the different answers. And some of the iconic movie lines make reference to some of these answers. So I figured it might be fair enough. Can you name one of the ingredients for Polyjuice Potion?
Oh, gosh.
My hint is think of Professor Snape in movie 4 when he confronts Harry about potion robbery.
I have something I want to say, but I feel like it could be wrong.
I'll give you two
Now,
guesses.
I want to say herbology, the clippings from herbology. Oh man.
Oh, no, that's for the
Oh,
petrification potion.
yeah, that's the other one. So that was one. Two. Um,
You got Snape when he do you remember that scene outside of his store cupboard after what's his name? The leader of Durmstrang walks out, Kakarot, and he goes
yes.
like, Harry, you have like blank, blank, blank. And he talking about the different things that have been
Oh
taken
man.
from him. That's somewhat spoilery, but nobody cares.
Well, I'm drawing a blank.
That's all right. Well, that's okay. So I think the one that most people remember is like there's lacewing flies, boom
I should
slang
know this
skin.
because I played Hogwarts Legacy.
You did?
I did. So
Did
I
you
had to
love
go
it?
collect all of this. I should know this. Yeah,
It
I
was
should
an
know this.
amazing game.
It was
Okay,
pretty fun.
your next question.
Okay, so my next question is the cat that gets petrified. Who does that belong to?
That cat belongs to Argus Filch.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. And my second question for you is which teacher do they get to sign the permission form to get the restricted
Gosh.
section?
Is it Lockhart?
It's Lockhart.
There we
Ding,
go.
ding, 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 ding. All right. Not bad. 2-1. You still kept the lead. All right. So it is not gone away. So you've carried the torch. The world is still slightly better than me.
I'm glad I could contribute.
That's right. Very good. Not so fast. Turns out the world and I are equals. Currently, anyway. I may not have remembered the right score then, but the score as it stands currently is 8-8, and we are all tied up. Now, last week's quiz question was, what was the second item that Ron mentions cleaning in the trophy room? The one that we said in the show was the award for special services to the school, but your question was, what was the second item that Ron mentioned cleaning? And the answer to that question was the Quidditch Cup. Congratulations if you got that right. And if you got it wrong, no worries. Your chance for redemption is now. What, dear listener, was the score of the Quidditch match against Slytherin when Gryffindor calls for timeout? That is your question for this week. I know, pretty tough, but I feel like you'll be able to rise to meet the challenge. So what was the score when Gryffindor calls for timeout in their match against Slytherin this week? If you want to submit your answers, you can do that by emailing me at theretoldpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send me a message on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. Anyway, back to the show. So without further ado, let's hop right into the chapter. So listeners, how this podcast is going to go is Taylor and I are going to retell chapters 9 and 10. And at the end of each chapter discussion, we'll mention our favorite lines from each chapter. We'll talk about Transfigurations, changes that the movies made from the books. And then we'll get into some golden snitches, which are deep lore, tits and bits, and little grabs behind the scenes things that the average fan might not know about. And then at the very end of the episode, after we do the second chapter, we will get into our restricted section, which is a spoiler section for anybody who I've also been calling it the Chamber of Secrets because I thought that was a little clever too.
It's a little fitting.
Right? And so that'll be for anybody who has read the books, has seen the movies, or doesn't care about spoilers. That section is for y'all. So anyway, you ready to hop in, Taylor?
Let's get to it.
Here we go. So last time we left off on Mrs. Norris hanging on the wall. Filch shows up and he is super not happy about this. He says the kids killed his cat. So in the spirit of the code of Hammurabi, he says life for life, he's going to kill Harry. I always think of my friend and I quote this line back and forth to each other a lot of, you murdered my cat. I'll kill you. Filch is
He's one of
very
my
quotable.
favorites. Yes, he is.
There's another one coming up soon too. But unsurprisingly, Daddy Dumbledore shows up, and I love how he basically is just like, nothing to see here, everybody, because it says he quickly walks forward, takes the cat off the wall, and just turns around and faces everybody. He's like, you three, Filch, let's go somewhere else. So he's just like, nothing happened here. Very Dumbledore-ish. Dumby takes them all into Lockhart's office. And I also I like this note about Lockhart. It says, the silent crowd parted to let them pass. Lockhart, looking excited and important, hurried after Dumbledore, and so did Professors McGonagall and Snape. So I like that Lockhart is like, look at me, I'm contributing. And
Lockhart was very I don't know how to say it. He was, he kind of just pops up, and it was all about him at sometimes, I guess you could say.
Any way to make it about him. And you see it throughout this discussion where Dumbledore starts talking about one thing and he goes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Then Dumbledore goes, oh no, actually it's this thing. And he goes, well, I knew that. I was just going along with you. I meant to say, my opening thoughts for this chapter, it's a very funny Lockhart and a very funny Ron chapter. There's a bunch of good moments for both of them. Yes. But anyway, Dumbledore examines Mrs. Norris, and Filch cries some. Snape is trying not to laugh. We get some more Lockhart gold, of him just being like, I know exactly. I wish I had been there. Wish that could have been me. He mentions the transmogrification, I don't even know how to say it. Some torture that I looked it up. I don't think it's a real spell. We couldn't find it. Couldn't find it anywhere. But good news, Mrs. Norris is not dead. And half of this podcast, Taylor, is me just making references to things that something in the chapter reminds me of. And so I was like, with Dumbledore saying she's not dead, I wasn't sure which one to go with. Either I'm not dead yet from Monty Python, or she's only mostly dead from Princess Bride. So one of those two fits perfectly for this.
Yeah.
Dumpy says he doesn't know how she's been petrified, and Filch is like, I know how. He did it. He being Harry. He's like, ask him. Harry says, nah, brah, wasn't me. And this is where Filch lets slip that he is a squib. And if a squib is somebody with a person born into a wizarding family who they themselves has no magical power. It's like the inverse of a mudblood. Muggle porn. I don't use that one. And then we get a moment from Snape that has always confused me. So in this moment with Snape, I can't really tell what he's doing and what he's going for, because he says, at first he pipes up and goes, perhaps Harry and his friends were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then he proceeds to grill them and kind of frame them. So I was like, you're defending them, but you're also attacking them. So what are you going for, Snape? I'm not entirely sure.
I don't know. I always thought that too. It made me wonder.
It's a very odd moment. And then there's a funny bit where so he's grilling them, asking them different questions, and he finds out that they were at the ghost party. And he goes, well, why didn't you go and get some food in the Great Hall? Because ghosts don't have food for human people or alive people. And Ron says, we weren't hungry. And we weren't hungry, said Ron loudly, as his stomach gave a huge rumble. Spoiler, that might be one of my favorite lines. I thought that was funny. So Ron's stomach growls. McGonagall and Snape did into it over Quidditch. I thought this was really funny, where he goes, perhaps we should just take away Harry's Quidditch privileges until he's ready to talk more. And McGonagall, and I don't know if you know this, it's like a theory in the fandom that she is into sports betting.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
no.
She's this massive sports fan. And so especially with Gryffindor being her ride or die team, she's like, what do you mean take him off the team for now? You shut your mouth, Snape. It's basically, they start to argue. And Dumbledore pipes up and says, you ain't got no proof, so innocent until proven guilty. Lockhart ticks Snape off, saying I could make the potion. And Snape says, nah, bro. I'm the potion's master. As the book even says, it's an awkward moment. And Dumbledore goes, all right, kids, just get out of here before it gets worse. So off they trot, not to their dorms, though, but to an abandoned classroom, which is not a good idea given what just happened, because everybody's suspecting them. Harry says, I should have told them about the creepy voice. Do y'all think so? And Ron's like, heck no, bro. Not a good idea. Ron vaguely has an idea of what the Chamber of Secrets is. Oh, but also something to point out, Ron says it's never a good idea to tell people, even in the wizarding world, that you're hearing voices. And
Yes.
and I forgot to write this down in the Transfiguration section, so I'll say it here. But that is changed in the movie where they take that line away from him and give it to Hermione, which is a bit more of Ron and Hermione line changes in the movies. But anyway,
that is something I also picked up as well. They wanted to make him look a little silly, I guess.
so silly. So there's this moment where Harry says, "What's a squib, by the way?" And Ron kind of laughs. And I wanted to defend Ron a little bit here because this episode isn't out yet, and the episode for last week isn't out yet. But in that episode, Taylor, John, my guest host John, and I, we kind of like made fun of Ron a little bit for like being somewhat inconsistent and saying like, you know, he's standing up for Hermione for being Muggleborn and all this stuff, but later he laughs at squibs. But he's not necessarily laughing here. He's only he even says only because it's Filch. He's like, a squib is not that funny. It's just because it's Filch, and it's easy to make fun of that guy. So a little bit of Ron defense there. So anyway, it's midnight, so off they go to bed. The next few days, the school is Gossip City, talking about what happened. Who do you think it was? Filch is patrolling the scene of the crime constantly. He's trying to put kids in detention for breathing loudly or looking happy. Had a few teachers like that. So he's not doing too well. It is sad that he has to clean that mess up, though, because he's the one that has to clean the wall and the water and all that. And it's like, oh, he's got it. That's where his kitty got.
Yeah, that is his cat, isn't it?
Jenny isn't looking good either, and Ron attempts to cheer her up, but his attempts do not help at all. It says, Jenny Weasley seemed very disturbed by Mrs. Norris' fate. According to Ron, she was a great cat lover. But you haven't really got to know Mrs. Norris, Ron told her bracingly. Honestly, we're much better off without her. Jenny's lip trembled. And it's like, it's okay. She was an awful cat. She's not one of the good ones.
Yeah, she didn't really contribute to very much.
No, and it doesn't really help Jenny. Later, Justin Fletchley avoids Harry in the hallway. And when Harry tells Ron about it, Ron's like, who cares, bro? I thought he was kind of dumb anyway. And Ron is full of zingers in this chapter. I said it earlier. He has a ton of lines that are just really funny, and it's a good character chapter for Ron, I think. We get that line on where he's talking about, Harry asks, what is Hermione doing? And Ron goes, I think she's trying to read the whole library before break. We learn she's not trying to do that, though. She just wants to check out Hogwarts history like everybody else. Why? Because she wants to learn more about the Chamber of Secrets. Well, you can't because no spoilers for y'all. See what I did there? Ron asked to see her homework, and I like her response because she's like all in her thoughts thinking about what this could be, what's the conspiracy behind the Chamber of Secrets. And he says, hey, let me see your homework. And she just goes, no, I won't, said Hermione severely. You had 10 days to finish it. So I like the sudden quick attitude change. Like, no, what the frick are you talking about? We're talking about more important things over here.
Their bickering was always one of my favorite things.
Yes, thank you.
Always just the things they said to each other and the way they kind of communicated with each other. You would think that they were like brothers and sisters or something. Mm-hmm. And then throughout the movies, obviously, but I think that that's just really funny.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I forgot to make note of it. But I think this is like, we get a specific call out to that where the bell rang, Ron and Hermione led the way to history of magic bickering. And I think throughout the books, they do this, like you said, often where they walk to and fro to whatever class, to whatever room at Hogwarts, and they're just arguing the whole way. And it's always seen from Harry's perspective. So that's what he says, is they're just walking along bickering. And I think this is the first time that it happens, that they walk somewhere with them two just arguing the whole way. It's a good call out. They go to History of Magic, and it's super boring. Everyone's really sleepy. Taylor, were you a history person? Are you a big fan of history?
I did like history. I did. How about you?
I love history, and it was even my my major in undergrad. The only problem was I crammed for all of my undergrad tests, so I kind of forgot everything that I knew, because whenever you cram, it just slips right back out. So people are always like, Barry, you're the history major, you're the history guy, and I'm like, you have to give it a Google. I don't know. Yeah. I really don't know.
Too much for me to remember.
It really is. So anyway, it goes to show that it's super important, the teacher that you have, but because I feel like History of Magic would be a really cool class.
Yeah, I do too.
But something crazy happens, and I can't tell if this is meant to be ironic or not. So it says, talking about Professor Binz, and we should mention that the professor of this class is a ghost. He's
not mentioned in the movies.
No, I hope that he's in Hogwarts Legacy though.
Yeah, but not the movies, unfortunately.
Hopefully that's an addition they put in for the TV show coming out next year.
Maybe.
So he said, talking about Binz, he had been speaking for half an hour when something happened that had never happened before. Hermione put up her hand. So I feel like that's heavily ironic, but I couldn't tell which one it was going for or if it was both. So I feel like it's saying something that had never happened before because nobody asked questions in his class.
Because it was so boring.
Yeah. But also Hermione always puts up her hand, I guess, in every other class. So it's like a little bit of a double entendre there. So anyway, Hermione asks him about the Chamber of Secrets, and this makes everybody sit up. It's really funny. It says Dean Thomas, who had been sitting with his mouth hanging open, gazing out of the window, jerked out of his trance. Lavender Brown's head came up off her arms, and Neville Longbottom's elbow slipped off his desk. They're all like, what the frick's about to go on? We want to know. This guy's old and dead. All right, he might know something about this. Okay, so I wrote down this joke. I need to add a caveat. This is not any sort of political podcast. I make no political statements. But in this moment, it made me think of just a political commentator that people like to reference a lot. So again, this is not a political statement at all, but Professor Binz, or should I say Binz Shapiro, only says, I only deal with the facts. if you know who I'm talking about, you'll get that. But because he basically says he doesn't want to answer the question because he only deals with the facts. It's all about the facts. And Hermione logics him into an explanation, though, and says, hey, don't all legends have some basis in fact? And again, this is even funnier because the political commentator Shapiro talks very, very fast. And Binz is a ghost who talks very, very slow. So again, I've completely flipped the script now on this scene when I was reading it. Instead of a slow voice telling them about the Chamber of Secrets, I just imagine
now you think it fast.
Yeah, he's just like, I'll tell you about the story of the Chamber of Secrets. Let me tell you all the facts. He gives the Hogwarts origin story. It was founded 1,000 years ago by some super dope wizards. One of them, Slytherin, was like, hey, y'all, you heard of a thing called segregation? I think we should try it out. And the other founders are like, ew, no, bro. What the heck are you talking about? Slytherin was like, just an idea. Anyway, he ends up bouncing. I want to know what he did after, because it says the other founders stayed and taught till I think they retired or whatever, but I want to know where he went off to. But he didn't leave, not before, maybe, but probably not. Just a hypothetical potential evil dungeon was put into the Hogwarts with a racist monster in there, but probably not. Unless that's basically how Professor Binz describes it. Anyways, Professor Binz Shapiro says, but naturally, that's all just speculation. That's all just speculation, not facts. And they argue with him. He gets their names wrong, and he ends with a very funny Binz Shapiro line. Like, I thought, should I do this? Should I not? And then when he says this, I was like, I have to do this. He goes, I regret telling you such a foolish story. We return, if you please, to history, to solid, believable, verifiable fact. I loved it. Anyway, where am I? Class ends and Ron talks some trash about Salazar Slytherin. There's this funny moment when Ron and Hermione are both like, yo, we definitely would have gotten the heck out of here if that hat wanted to put us in Slytherin. Right, Harry? And Harry's over there like, yeah, sure.
They didn't know, did they?
No, it said he never told them, which I'm kind of surprised by. He tells them literally everything.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that too.
And so Harry's just thinking about that incident with the hat last year. And to help his thought out, they run into Colin in the hall, and he says, Harry, hey, people have been saying that you're a no good, dirty, rotten, evil heir of Slytherin and you're stinky. Okay, bye. Fantastic. So the trio talks some more about the chamber, and they find themselves at the scene of the petrification. And Harry, genius that he is, just goes, how about we do some snooping? So they find a group of spiders just scuttling around, and Ron doesn't like that. He has to tell them that he's not a fan of spiders, and Hermione laughs at his childhood trauma. He tells them of how Fred turned his spider when he was turned his little teddy bear when he was a kid into a spider. And that was a funny line when he says something like, imagine how you would feel if you're holding your teddy and all of a sudden it has too many legs. They go to the spot where the water was that night, and Ron is about to go in, but he can't because it's a girl's bathroom. Hee hee. And Hermione says, it's no big deal, though. This is just Myrtle's bathroom, so no one will be in there. They go in, and Myrtle is like, it gave me an idea that Myrtle was like Hermione's dog, where basically the boys are waiting outside, and she's like, hold on, let me go make sure she's okay before I introduce you.
Make sure the coast is clear first.
So they go in, and Myrtle's like, ew, boys. And Hermione says, yeah, girl, I know. Anyway, you see anything sus around here that night? Myrtle says, nope. She was too upset from Peeves. And there's this moment with Ron. Again, tons of funny Ron moments. But she's talking about that night when Peeves upset her. She said, I wasn't paying attention, said Myrtle dramatically. Peeves upset me so much I came in here and tried to kill myself. Then, of course, I remembered that I'm already dead, said Ron helpfully. He's trying to be nice about it. Like, is that the word you're looking for?
Let me help you out with that. Let me finish your statement.
And then Myrtle gave a tragic sob. It's like, oh, that wasn't the right thing to say. Myrtle cries and ghosts away. I wasn't exactly sure how to describe her flying off. They leave and run into Percy outside the bathroom, and he's like, Ron, how indecent of you. Oh my goodness. Have you seen that anime Spy Family?
No.
Yeah, me neither. Anyway, there's just a moment in there where one of the main characters, he always comments on whether things are elegant or not. And so I could picture Percy walking up being, how inelegant of you, Ron. Anyway, Ron says they didn't hurt Mrs. Norris, and they start to argue, and it ends with Percy taking 5 points from Gryffindor. What a jerk. Later, in the common room, they speculate over who might be the heir of Slytherin. Number one suspect, who do they think it is, Taylor? Gotta be that dirty, rotten Malfoy. That no good, stinky Malfoy. I'm going to skip over their conversation because I want to say some of Ron's lines in my favorite lines section. But long story short, they have the idea to use Polyjuice Potion, and it's a potion that changes how you look to trick Malfoy into telling them the truth. They need a book from the restricted section, though, but only a really stupid, dumb, thick teacher, and well, thick in the English sense, not the American sense, would give their permission to get a book from there. And that's the end of chapter 9. Yay!
Yay!
We made it to the end of chapter 9. All right, Taylor, you got any favorite lines from this one?
One of my favorite lines is when Ron says, I always knew Salar Slytherin was a twisted old loony, because that's just so something that Ron would say. And I just love the way that Ron sometimes words things, I think, because it's just kind of funny and different from any other character in the books or movies.
Yeah, and like I was saying, especially at the beginning when we started this chapter coverage of like, it's such a good character chapter for him of like, oh, what a Ron thing to say. What a Ron thing to like, it all starts here. And one of my favorite lines was, let's see, on 140. I always say the page numbers and nobody has my copy.
I'm kind of following along with you.
Yeah.
So I can find them.
Yeah.
I've been able to kind of follow.
I wonder, do we have the same copy? So it's like, I have this one that has like the dragons.
Hardcover.
Oh, you got the legit one. Good for you.
But it's weird because it's followed along.
What has?
When you said page 141,
yeah,
it started with my chapter at 140, so maybe it's just a page off.
Very cool. So this one's on 143 in my copy. I already said it, but it's the one where Ron says, "We weren't hungry," said Ron loudly, and his stomach gave a huge rumble. Did you have another favorite lines? Any more?
Not that really stood out to me, other than you said, like, there's a lot of Ron
Hmm.
lines, but that one was in particular one of my favorites.
Yeah, another one of mine. Again, this is another one that my friend and I quote a lot from Filch. My cat has been petrified. I want to see some punishment. I love that line. Again, not even because of the book, but because of that actor's delivery in the movie. It's
He
so
did such a good
good.
job.
And then another one that I really liked, when Ron says to Jenny, stuff like this doesn't often happen at Hogwarts, Ron assured her. It's like, bro, stuff like this only happens at Hogwarts. Like,
Right.
And then finally, to end it all, near the end of it, Ron had two really funny lines near the end of the chapter when Hermione's explaining to them what the plan is, like what potion to use and all that. She's taken forever to get the words out, and he says, if in a month or so you feel like explaining, you will let us know, won't you? Said Ron irritably. And then right after that, Hermione asks, like, she mentions the polyjuice potion, and she says, Snape talks about it. He told us about it in potions class. Weren't you listening? And Ron says, do you think we've got nothing better to do in potions than listen to Snape? So I thought that was funny as well.
Those are some good lines.
Right? Ron's killing it. All right, on to our Transfiguration section. So in this section, again, we're just highlighting differences that the movies made from the books. So the first one I want to point out is at the beginning of the chapter, Dumbledore takes them into Lockhart's classroom. In the movie, though, they get their talking to like in front of everybody, or at least they stay in the hallway, and then Dumbledore dismisses everybody, but they stay in that spot in the hallway instead of going into a classroom. Another thing to notice is that there's no mention of of the caretaker Argus Filch being a squib. It's not mentioned at all in the movies. I think it's safely assumed, but they don't mention the quick spell letter that they found or the fact that he isn't able to do magic. The other one, the book calls it red paint on the wall for the entrance. In the movie, though, the movie specifically calls it blood.
Blood, so, yes. Yeah, that was one of the main things that stood out to me.
And I think in the restricted section, we can mention where the blood comes from because it's a spoiler. But anyway, McGonagall tells them, in the movie, McGonagall tells them about the Chamber of Secrets in Transfiguration class. But in the book, like we just read, it was Professor Binz. But it's a really cool scene in the movie because it's like, I think it's the only time we get to be in Transfiguration class in the whole series. It's the only time we see that classroom. I love being in that room. I think it's in, you get to see it in Hogwarts Castle when you're walking around in Universal.
Yes.
But also in that classroom, one thing I did learn, this little behind the scenes thing, that when they were filming that scene in the second movie, the class has tons of birds and little animals and lizards and stuff hanging in cages from the ceiling. And apparently the actors were all like, yeah, that took forever to film because those animals kept pooping on us. Like just from the ceiling, just dropping.
I could imagine with all those animals, there was quite a few.
And then at the very end, last Transfiguration for this section, there's no Percy stuff. So when they go sneak into the bathroom and they walk out like that, it doesn't go down that way in the book of them first checking out. The first time you go into Myrtle's class or bathroom in the movie, it's when they're already starting to brew the potion for the Polyjuice potion. So they never go in and have this scene where they check things out, and they don't have this run-in with Percy. So anyway, and there's a Percy side plot in the books that's also forgotten about in the movie. But anyway, that's all we got for our Transfigurations. Moving on to our Golden Snitches. It was funny because I wrote down a lot. Like I would write down things that Lockhart said to be like, oh, I'm going to look that up. But half the time they were just fake and they weren't real things. So like I mentioned, like the transmogrifian torture. That's a hard word to say. Transmogrifian torture. Not a real thing. The other thing he mentioned, and you might get a kick out of this, he mentions the fact that he's been to this place called Wagadugo, not to be confused with the African wizard school, Wagadoo, which if you play Hogwarts Legacy, one of your friends is like a transfer from there. But Wagadugo, he says he's been to this place, but he actually gets it wrong. So I'll read this here. I have it on the Potter Wiki. Gilderoy Lockhart once falsely claimed that he helped put a stop to a series of attacks in this city, which were apparently similar in nature to petrification by a basilisk, by giving the townspeople protective amulets. The Order of Air Voyagers for Intrepid Wizards inducted Lockhart as a member after he flew to Wagadugo on broomstick, although Lockhart's membership certificate described the African city as the furthest most point in Siberia, possibly indicating the document was forged and that Lockhart never made such a long-distance flight because Siberia is not in there. It's the wrong spot. So
That's very interesting. I never looked into all of that before.
I only do it because I do a podcast for it, so don't feel like you're missing out on too much. My other golden snitch is we have Professor Binz. Also, I don't know how to say this name. His first name it's spelled Cuthbrt, so I don't know if it's like Cuthbert or Cubert, but it's Professor Cubert Binz. Was a wizard and history of magic professor at Hogwarts. He owned an office in the main castle at classroom 4F on the first floor. He taught until a very old age when he fell asleep in the staff room and died sitting in a chair. And then it said, I remember reading this somewhere else in the book, it says he just stood up and not noticing that he died as a ghost and just continued to teach. Infamously known for having the most boring of classes. So I may have mentioned that in the first book, but people probably forgot by now. Anyway, the last thing to note from last golden snitch for this section is Polyjuice Potion is mentioned. So Polyjuice Potion is a complex and time-consuming concoction that is best left to highly skilled witches and wizards. It enables the consumer to assume the physical appearance of another person as long as they have first procured part of the individual's body to add to the brew. This may be anything such as toenail clippings, dandruff, or worse, but it is most usual to use hair. The idea of a witch or wizard, let me skip ahead. The effect of the potion is only temporary, and depending on how well it has been brewed, may last anything from between 10 minutes and 12 hours. You can change age, sex, and race by taking the potion, but not species. And that's important to remember. So anyway, that's all I got for our golden snitches. So I'm ready to move on to chapter 10. What about you?
I'm pretty ready.
Let's keep it rocking. So chapter 10, the Rogue Bludger. My opening thoughts, I forgot to write any down. So we're going to keep going.
Okay.
But did you have any opening thoughts about the chapter?
No. We
Very
can just
good.
start. Yeah.
Let's do it. So awesome start to the chapter, given the end of the last chapter. So, the last chapter being like, only a really dumb teacher would fall for this. And then it opens up by talking about Professor Lockhart. Lockhart has been using Harry to act out his triumphs, from all his different books. It's like when you were in high school, in English class or middle school, whatever, and your teacher would have you act out the play in front of the class. Did your teachers ever do that?
They did. And it was just like, oh my gosh, why?
Please stop.
Please.
But only Harry is having to do this. He's calling Harry to the front of the class. He's making him be all his different enemies that he defeats. There's an interesting bit about turning a werewolf back into a human, which I didn't think was possible, but more on that in our golden snitches. So anyway, class lets out. Their homework is to write a poem about Lockhart. Sick, good homework assignment. I'm sure it's very educational.
Something only he would do.
I know. And he says the best one gets a signed copy of Magical Maine. Everyone is gone now, so it's time that they enact their super complicated plan to trick Lockhart into giving them permission to get a book from the restricted section. And it's not that complicated. All it is Hermione lying and saying she wants to read this particular book because it might help her understand one of his other books, Gadding with Ghouls. And that's all he hears is he's like, Gadding with Ghouls? Oh, great book. Did I mention that I wrote it? And I love this line where there's a confusion about his quill. He pulled out an enormous peacock quill. Yes, nice, isn't it? He said, misreading the revolted look on Ron's face. I usually save it for book signings. So he's like, I know, really cool, isn't it? And Ron's just like, that's not what I meant. So anyway, let's see. Where am I? My note. Lockhart. Oh, I said Lockhart reminds me of the pastor or gym guy. So let me explain what I mean by that. So there's this section where Lockhart tells Harry, like, hey, I hear you have a match against Slytherin tomorrow in Quidditch. If you need any help, let me know. I can give you some awesome pointers. If you didn't know, I almost went pro. I could have gone pro, but I chose to fight evil. And it makes me think I'm a youth pastor, and it's a meme in like church culture to talk about like that one pastor who will be like, oh yeah, I could have been a pro athlete, but I decided to follow God instead. It's like, I just thought that was, or also, like I said, the old guy at the gym who's like, when I was your age, I could bench press 315 easy. Like, no problem.
Yeah.
Why are you struggling? So anyway, that's who Lockhart is. They got Lockhart to sign. They got Lockhart to sign their thing, though. So they're like, fantastic. Let's go to the library. There's this funny moment with the permission slip. And like, Hermione doesn't want to give it to the librarian, Madam Pince, because she's like, can I keep it though? Because it's it's Lockhart's autograph. And Ron's like, bro, just give it up. Lockhart will sign anything if it stands still long enough, which I thought was a very funny line.
Yes.
They get their book and off they go to Myrtle's library. I said Myrtle's library. They go to Myrtle's bathroom, her laboratory.
Yes.
It's easy confusion. They decided this will be their secret place, their secret headquarters where they will concoct the potion. Now, Taylor, I was thinking about this. You as a universal expert.
Mm-hmm.
Their headquarters where they will concoct this potion is Myrtle's bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, they reason out nobody's going to go into that bathroom because it's Myrtle's bathroom. On the other hand, you have to deal with Myrtle in that bathroom. And for anybody who doesn't know, at Universal, in the bathrooms in Harry Potter world, in the guys and girls bathrooms, you hear Myrtle's voice talking to you.
You do.
And it's difficult enough to even like pee with Myrtle talking in the bathroom. Could you imagine trying to focus on a super complicated potion?
No.
Like, what do you think of their idea to do it this way?
I think that it was very interesting that they would do that. Are you talking about the bathrooms?
Yeah, it's like, why would they choose that of all places?
I guess it kind of fits what they were trying to do, I guess, if you really think about it, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just another touch of magic.
Have you ever heard, like, when you're at Universal and people talking, like when you're in the bathroom, I've heard like dudes in the bathroom before in Harry Potter world not knowing what they're about to walk into. Just be like, what the frick is that? What's going on? Have you heard that on the women's side?
Actually, I've never heard anybody say that in there, but I think more people don't pay attention because I've spoke to people and they're like, they've never heard it in there before. So maybe like, it's just really, I don't know. Maybe you just don't hear it if you're not paying attention.
I guess it stands out more in the men's bathroom too, because it's like a teenage girl's voice rather in the women's bathroom at Universal, especially when it's crowded. It's like, it could just be another voice. They might not even notice.
Kind of blends in.
That's funny. I never thought of that. That's interesting. So anyway, the book, I said, this book is brutal. Oh, I'm talking about the potions book because it talks about, there's like illustrations of people having undergone awful things. It even says that there is it says very unpleasant illustrations, which included a man who seemed to have been turned inside out and a witch sprouting several extra pairs of arms out of her head. I'm like, holy crap, they need to get this book away from children. Yes. That's crazy.
That's only stuff that would be in a book at Hogwarts. Like,
fair point.
Very much fitting.
Have you ever like tried to look at the books that are in the shop windows, like outside of Diagon Alley or wherever? My wife, she's the easiest person to get a present for. She's an English teacher and she loves old books. Just loves it. Anytime for her birthday and anniversaries and stuff, I just go to Goodwill and find the oldest book at Goodwill And she's like, thank you so much. And I'm like, it was $2. You're welcome. But I am a much bigger Harry Potter fan than her.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are at Universal, one of her favorite things to do is to like look in the windows and look at those books and be like, I wonder how old these might be actually. So
There's
I love
lots
that
of small details in there.
Mm-hmm. And
They really did a good job with all of the little tiny things. If you don't really look at them, you won't really see them. You have to like really take your time and walk around, like you said, to see everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so excited to see like what it will be like at Epic Universe of the small details there, because I feel like I've gone around everywhere at the main two, and I'm like, I want to see the new stuff now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hermione says it's a very difficult potion to make, and Harry starts to question if they should even do this. Hermione says, fine. If you want to wuss out, then go ahead. Guess you don't care about us Muggleborns, Mr. Boy Who Lived. And the boys are like, yo, chill. That's not what we were saying. We'll do it. Sheesh. I do like it talks about like there's a fire in her eyes, and she's like determined to do this because these are her people, you know? So we do learn that it will be a month before the potion is ready, though. And Ron says, like when he says to Harry, or instead of waiting a month, you could just do a violence tomorrow in the Quidditch match and knock Malfoy off his broom.
Yes, he did say that.
Be a much simpler, quicker plan.
Yes.
The next day, as stated, is the Quidditch match against Slytherin, and even the other houses want Gryffindor to win because they're like, screw Slytherin, and they're like money bags, you know, freaking getting all the nicest equipment. And it's like when people want to see the super team lose, you know, they're like, everybody hates the Chiefs these days. They're like,
they're sick of seeing them over again.
That's right. And this made me wonder, like, I don't know who won last year because I guess it can be assumed that Ravenclaw won the championship, but it's made clear that Gryffindor definitely didn't win, but Gryffindor also beat Slytherin. But I don't think it's ever stated who won the Quidditch Cup in their first year. So I'll have to look that up.
I think it was.
Moving on. Wood's speech is hilarious because he's like, we've trained harder. We've done more. All right. We're bigger. We're better. We're faster. So, Harry, it's all up to you. You know, he's talking about everything that the team's done, and he just goes, so anyway, Harry, it's all on your shoulders, really. Tells him to catch the snitch, even if it kills him. They go outside. There's some cheers and boos, and off they go as Madam Hooch blows her whistle, and Malfoy calls Harry Scarhead, not one of his better insults. All right?
No, not.
Back
Was
to the
definitely
drawing board.
not.
All of a sudden, one of the bludgers just locks onto Harry. Just wants to give him a kiss. And just won't leave him alone. Chases him around everywhere. It gets so bad that Fred and George have to stay stuck by his side, which is double bad because now they can't help everybody else defend from the other bludger, and Harry can't look for the snitch. The score is getting bad. Slytherin is up 60-0, and Gryffindor calls for timeout. The team tries to convince Wood to call the game, or at least to get Fred and George to keep with Harry, so that the bludgers will be safe, or he'll be safe from the bludgers. And Harry just says, bros, trust. I got this. And I do like George's rebuke of Wood, though, because, you know, he told Harry, catch the snitch, even if it kills. So this is all your fault, George said angrily to Wood. Get the snitch or die trying. What a stupid thing to tell him. So I like George calling him out on that. Like, hey, you're taking this way too seriously, bro. Just a game.
Letting him know he needs to calm down.
Wood looks at Harry's face, though, and says he can do it. And I wrote down, it makes me think of Joey and Ross. Have you ever seen Friends?
Yes, I've watched Friends.
So it's one of my absolute favorite shows growing up. And there's this scene in one of the episodes when the gang wants to have Thanksgiving dinner at Chandler and Monica's, but they are unable to everybody shows up late and they're locked out. And so they barely get the door open, but it has like chain bolts, so you can kind of halfway open it, and they all stick their heads in. But when they're outside talking about it, they're like, oh, I don't think we can get in there. And Joey goes, trust me, I can convince them. And he makes his eyes really big, and he's just like, if I just have the chance, I can do it. And
Yes.
Ross looks at him and goes, he can do it. I believe in him. And then Joey goes in, their eyes big, guys, we're really sorry. It's just, This is not a visual podcast. This is only going to be funny to people who have actually seen that
Yeah, they
episode.
wouldn't know if they've never watched that, but it is funny.
It is. See, guys, I'm not the only one who thinks so. Taylor agrees. Look it up. So anyway, play resumes, and the Bludger's chasing Harry, and he's got to fly around like crazy. And I don't know if you caught this. I thought this was interesting. It did say he began a kind of roller coaster ride around the edges of the stadium, and I was like, oh, that is the roller coaster somewhat at Universal. All right.
Yes.
What's it called? The Hogwarts ride. What's the actual name for it?
The Forbidden Journey.
The Forbidden Journey. Because you get on a broom and you fly around. You get to the Queen's area. So I wonder if when they were designing the park, they were like, I wonder, is the word roller coaster ever mentioned? They put it all in a PDF, just typed like Control F roller coaster, and it just got here, and they were like, perfect, let's do this.
We'll take that and do that right now.
Let's run with it, boys. This will be great. So anyway, Harry finally sees the snitch hanging above Malfoy's head. Malfoy doesn't even notice it. He's too busy just insulting Harry. And what ends up happening, Harry's like looking at him, and he goes, oh, shoot. The snitch is just above his head. What do I do? And in his moment where he pauses, that's when the bludger finally hits him, breaks his elbow. He's like, oof, arms don't bend like that. Anyway, full steam ahead. The adrenaline's flying through him, and he rushes at Malfoy, catches the snitch right above his face. And there's this sick moment. Again, Harry can't catch a snitch without making it look dramatic. And he catches the snitch. And
of course.
That's right. Falls right to the ground, falls right to the muddy ground and passes out. Now, Taylor, if you had just performed an epic athletic stunt like what Harry did, and you passed out from all the pain, what do you think would be the most comforting thing to wake up to?
Just peace and quiet.
Well, you'd be wrong.
Right?
The absolute most comfortable thing. See, some people might think peace and quiet would be nice, but what's even better than that is Professor Lockhart's smile. Just treating you
right in your face.
And I love that Harry goes, oh no, not you. Lockhart's like, oh, foolish boy. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. Lockhart says, nah, I got this. We get that, like Harry protests. And it is kind of like, it made me feel a little uncomfortable. The amount of times Harry says, no, please don't do this. Like, I am not consenting. And Lockhart just goes, nah, I got this. You'll be fine. And it's not in the book, but in the movie, he gives that quote or that line, Brachium Amendo. And I just want to
he does.
Because I like saying it. So anyway, the spell, congratulations, Harry. No more broken bones. I like Hagrid's, he's not there in the book, but in the movie, Hagrid's there and he goes, broken bones? There ain't no bones left.
Yes, he does say that. That was one of my favorites.
Like folding his arm back, and he goes, well, as you can see, no more broken bones. Again, people can't see, but I'm flopping my arm around just like Harry did. So he removed all Harry's bones. So, as Harry wanted to do, he's sent to Madame Pomfrey, which again, where he should have been sent in the first place. And Madame Pomfrey is very unhappy, to say the least. She's like, you should have gone to me right away. And he was like, bro, I tried. It'll be okay, though. She says, I can grow them back. It'll be all fine and dandy. I got this awesome bottle of Skelligro, which, listeners, you don't know this, but Taylor has a bottle right behind her in her
sure
office.
Do.
Yeah. So if Taylor ever loses some bones, she'll be fine.
I'll be all set.
But Harry will have to stay in the hospital wing overnight. Before that, though, his team comes in and they're like, bro, it's time to party. You won the game. It was sick. Malfoy got yelled at. So here's some food and some sody pops and drinks and all that. And they start to celebrate. But right as the party starts, Pomfrey comes back in and she says, hey, y'all need to leave. This boy needs to rest. He's got 33 bones to regrow. So hours later, Harry is asleep and he's woken up by someone sponging his forehead. Oh, that's kind of nice, but also really weird. Who the heck is doing that? And it's Dobby the house elf. Harry's like, I remember you. You're from chapter 2. And this is when we learn that Dobby was also in chapters 5 and 9, because he's the one who blocked the entrance to platform 9 3/4 because he was just trying to keep Harry safe. And he's also the one who bewitched the bludger to fly after Harry as well. Again, because in his words, he's just trying to keep Harry safe. And he wants Harry to get out of Hogwarts. But let me just say, he's explaining to Harry why he's doing all this. Dobby, mopping his bulging eyes, said suddenly, "Harry Potter must go home." Dobby thought his bludger would be enough to make. "Your bludger," said Harry, anger rising once more. "What do you mean, your bludger? You made that bludger to try and kill me?" "Not kill you, sir. Never kill you," said Dobby, shocked. Dobby wanted to save Harry Potter's life. "Better sent home grievously injured than remained here, sir." Dobby only wanted Harry Potter hurt enough to be sent home. "Oh, is that all?" said Harry angrily. It's just a very good interaction of I didn't want to kill you, just seriously wound you.
I just wanted it to be enough for you to be done.
Yeah, to call you out of the game. All right. Dobby tries to do the woe is me thing, to get Harry to not be mad. And because Harry goes "Dobby, I'm going to freaking strangle you." And Dobby goes "Man, last time when I burned Master's dinner, I ironed my hands. I got a severe beating. And when Harry says he'll do the strangle thing, he's like, "Oh, it's no worries. I get death threats 5 times a day." And Dobby's doing that one thing. I hate when people do this, when they're in trouble, or like you might have a friend at some point and you're upset at them, and all they do is heap, "I know, I'm just a terrible person. I do all this awful stuff, da 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 da." And it's no, stop it. You're trying to get me to feel bad for you. All right, you did the bad thing. Quit trying to get out of this.
And this is serious.
This is dead serious right here. I wrote down Dobby is Eminem. Again, half the show is just references, because Dobby says he gets death threats 5 times a day, and there's a line in an Eminem song where he goes, "What do you know about death threats? Because I get a lot." So I need somebody to do the AI art of Dobby in a rapper form.
That'd be pretty funny.
There's a Hogwarts Legacy mod where you can play as Dobby instead of your character, and instead of a wand, he has a gun. And so
I think I've seen videos of this.
Yeah, it was a viral meme, and it says there's a little Dobby voiceover that says something like, "Master has given Dobby a Glock."
Yes, I've seen this.
So anyway, I do mention we do get some kind words from Dobby about what Harry means to house elves and all the lowly people, saying that before Harry came along, and when he who must not be named was on the rise, things were awful for us. And because of you, you gave us hope. So it's really sweet lines. And he says that Harry needs to leave before the chamber is opened. But whoopsies, he shouldn't have mentioned that. He shouldn't have mentioned that he knew stuff about it. And it gives us this other funny moment where, Dobby just he punishes himself. And after Harry gets him to stop, it says he seized the elf's bony wrist as Dobby's hand inched toward the water jug. So it's he's twitching, trying to must hurt self more.
You sound just like him when he talks.
I'm not going to do the voice. "Never kill you, sir." So Harry says, because Dobby tells him, "You need to get out of here, all right? You need to leave Hogwarts." And Harry says he's not going anywhere, and that he needs to stay at Hogwarts to keep his friend Hermione safe. And Dobby thinks that's super cool of Harry, but that he still should forget about her and save himself. Before anything else can be said, though, some people come walking up, and Dobby with a crack gets out of there because he apparates on out. And in walks Albus Dumbledore and McGonagall, carrying what Harry thinks is a statue, which really we later come to learn is the petrified figure of Colin Creevey. Dun, dun, dun. Madame Comfrey comes on out, throwing on her cardigan, and the three of them talk about what happened. There's a serious moment, but there are some odd things that don't fit in with this. So like I said, it's a serious moment where it's oh no, this isn't a cat, an actual student has been petrified and attacked. But some things just stood out to me in this particular section. So the first one was, Minerva found him on the stairs, And then McGonagall says, there was a bunch of grapes next to him. We think he was trying to sneak up to visit Potter. And I was like, what is the connection between grapes and Harry? Like, why
I don't think that there's any reason for them to say about grapes.
I know, it's like he had grapes. He must have been going to see Harry.
It was almost like that was like the breaking point was the grapes and not the point that there was another petrified. It was a person this time and not the cat.
I know, like, oh no, not the grapes. So maybe it's canon that Harry loves grapes because that's what Colin wanted to bring him. The other one is that the other weird thing is McGonagall mentions this thing about Dumbledore. She says, if Albus hadn't been on the way downstairs for hot chocolate, who knows what might have happened? And it's like, wait, what? Again, more weird food references of like somebody is grievously like in trouble, and he's just like, Dumbledore's just going to get my hot chalky.
Like that's his regular thing that he does all the time.
That was very odd to me as well. And then the final one was the way this chapter ends with McGonagall being like, so what does this mean? What happens? Like, and she says, but Albus, surely who? Because they say the chamber has been opened, and she goes, who? The question is not who, said Dumbledore, his eyes on Colin. The question is how. And from what Harry could see of Professor McGonagall's shadowy face, she didn't understand this any better than he. So he was like, Dumbledore says this like line that he probably thinks in his head is a super cool, smart line of like, it's not who, but how. And McGonagall's like, what? Wait, what do you mean? And that's the end of that chapter. Yay!
Yay!
And very good. We reached the end of chapter 10. So, favorite lines time. What you got for me, Taylor?
One of my favorite lines is when, again, another Ron line. He says that's because he's a brainless, I don't know really how you say this.
Yeah.
Jit.
Is it like the GIF and GIF? You don't know which one to go with?
Yeah, I never know with that either. I just, I don't know. And then it says, but as who cares if we've got what we've needed. Again, just another Ron line. I feel like this is very him with the word choices of his. And I don't know. I think these chapters were funny for Ron in the things he said.
Absolutely. One that I liked was, here it is, said Hermione excitedly, as she found the page headed the Polyjuice Potion. It was decorated with drawings of people halfway through transforming into other people. Harry sincerely hoped the artist had imagined the looks of intense pain on their faces, of him being like, oh, that's what we're going to have to go through? I had another one where it says, when Harry's just passed out and he's waking up again, he came around, rain falling on his face, still lying on the field, with someone leaning over him. He saw a glitter of teeth. And that's when he says the oh no thing. But it's like, that's the first thing he sees is just some pearly white shining down at him.
You can just imagine it, can't you? Like, you're just laying there and that's all you see.
It's like the cat in, what's that trippy Disney movie? Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, yes.
Whatever that cat's called. Did you have any more favorite lines?
No, I think that was. I like all of the little Dobby lines between Dobby and Harry, but.
Yeah, and so that was my last one, is one of the Dobby ones of, but mostly, sir, life has improved for my kind since you triumphed over he who must not be named. Harry Potter survived, and the Dark Lord's power was broken, and it was a new dawn, sir, and Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark days would never end, sir. And that's just beautiful. What a sweet thing to say to somebody. It's also, it's also a little bit meta because it's saying that Harry Potter was an inspiring story for these people. And in the real world, Harry Potter is an inspiring story for a lot of people. And,
it's very inspiring.
Yeah, for tons of people. You said you were checking it out during COVID times, and it's like not a fun time for a lot of us, but you know, something that gets people through difficult times and can enjoy and be a nice place to either escape or draw inspiration from. So very meta line there.
Yes.
All right. Now moving on to our Transfigurations. So again, differences from the movies made from the book. The first one is that the book that they're looking for, what's the name of it? I can remember it. Most Potent Potions was not in the restricted section in the movie. It's just in the library, like just in the regular library. The other one is that the Quidditch match, there's a lot different about the Quidditch match. In the movie, the Quidditch match, first big difference is that it's in the sun. All right. Like,
and not the rain.
yeah. And so the rain's coming down in the movie, in the book, but in the movie it takes place in the sun. Fred and George also like stay next to Harry and help him out with the bludger. Because the bludger is just going after him. In the movie, though, they don't really help him out much. At least we don't see them helping him out.
No, you don't really see them help him out much in the movie at all.
There's not a timeout called. The bludger also attacks Oliver Wood in the movie as well. Now, granted, Oliver Wood may just a bit in the way, but there's that scene where Harry's like, "Wood, watch out!" and the bludger like destroys his broom. Also, before Harry catches the snitch, the score was 60-0 in the book. In the movie, it was 90-30. So a little small difference.
It's a big difference.
Right?
Quite the difference.
Yeah, Harry's the only one that scored points for them. So Wood meant it when he was like, "Harry, it's all up to you because we're not going to be able to do crap out there." Also in the movie, that scene when Harry like hits the ground and everything takes place after with Lockhart and all that. First big difference is that Hermione destroys the bludger. That's when we get the spell Finite Incantatum. And that's the one that just means like finished incantation, and she destroys the bludger. In the book, though, Fred and George like grab it and wrestle it back into the holder for all the Quidditch balls. And I think that's about all the biggest differences I had between book and movie. Couldn't think of much else. And then moving on to our golden snitches section. So the first one, again, little lore tidbits and grabs. First one being the Homorphous charm. So Lockhart at the beginning of this chapter says that he like grabbed a werewolf and like forced it to the ground, put a wand to its neck, and did the Homorphous charm and turned it back into a human, and that like that town was free from werewolves afterwards. However, I did some snooping around on the holy Harry Potter wiki, you know, and it says that here. Let me find it. Lockhart described the spell as being immensely complex and performed by placing the tip of one's wand to the throat of whomever the caster wanted to return to human form. Contrary to Lockhart's description of the spell, however, let's see, it says there was no known cure for lycanthropy, and lycanthropy is like werewolf disease. Cecile Lee of the Werewolf Capture Unit remarked that for him, the spell only temporarily returned a werewolf to human form. So it can't like fully turn a person back into a werewolf. There is no known cure, but it can temporarily do so. I just caught my eye because I remember in later books, there's characters who are werewolves and they're like, we can't go back ever. I'm like, oh, so
pretty interesting.
Yeah. The other golden snitch that I found, Madame Pomfrey says, like, she whisks everybody out of the hospital wing, and she says, "This boy has 33 bones to regrow." And I thought, is that correct? Like, are there 33 bones that make up like the arm and hand? It's up in the air. We don't know. So essentially, there's like for a grown adult, there's 30 bones. And at the most, I saw different numbers. I'm not a doctor, but it said 30 or 32, depending on how, like if you count the shoulder or something. And so 33 is an incorrect number, but somebody said that it could work given that when you're a kid and you're growing up, like you have more bones than an adult because your bones haven't fused together yet. And so there's potential.
That's kind of true.
Yeah. So there's potential that there was 33 there for Harry's 12 in this book. Again, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but it just didn't. I was like, is that actually right? And apparently it might not be. Anyway, moving on to my last golden snitch for this chapter, we have our Skelligro. So we talked about a little bit before. You own a bottle. We talked about that. But Skelligro was a dreadful tasting potion which restored and caused growth to bones. It was able to mend broken bones or even regrow entire bones that had vanished or have otherwise been lost. For regrowing entire bones, the process was notably slow and painful and could take over a full day. And something else to notice about this is that it was created by Linfrid I'm going to try to get this name right, Linfred of Stinchcombe, an ancestor of the Potter family, who is known for having created many medicinal potions, one of which would be used as the basis for Skele-Gro. So he like concocted the foundation for it. And I just
That's
thought that
pretty cool.
Yeah, I just thought that was significant given the fact that Harry's other ancestor invented Sleek Easy's hair potion, like a hair product. So I was like, oh, his family is just a bunch of potioneers, which makes
They're just
sense.
boys with potions.
Yeah, which makes sense because like you're saying, Lily is mentioned as later in the series as having been like an expert potioneer by
Yes.
somebody I will not mention yet. But anyway, that's all I got for the Golden Snitches. So now we're about to move on to our final section, the restricted section. Before we do, though, all right, because we're about to kick everybody out. All right, if you don't want spoilers, if you don't want to know what's happening for the rest of the series, you don't want to hear our talk about that stuff. All right, before you get to the Chamber of Secrets and all that, get on out of here. Before you do go, though, just want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for being here this week. Next week, we'll talk about chapters 11 and 12. Looking forward to that discussion. And Taylor, I want to shout out your Instagram. What's your Instagram?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Universally Taylor. That is my handle. And I'm also on TikTok, YouTube, and yeah.
Is it the same names there?
On YouTube, it's The Daily Potter with Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
But on TikTok and Instagram, it's Universally Taylor.
Very cool. And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. Listeners, you should check it out. I'm just a huge Universal and Harry Potter fan, so it's like a perfect match for me. So if you like either of those things, go and check it out. She's got great stuff. So without further ado, we're getting to the Chamber of Secrets now. All right, the restricted section. Okay. So some things I wanted to talk about. First one, it's kind of already like obvious at this point, but it hasn't been clearly stated that Lockhart is lying about everything that he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like in these moments, I'm trying to remember where I wrote this down. There's some moment that made me think that like, oh, he offers his classroom to Dumbledore and then he like clears off the desk and like prepares it and everything. And it made me think that this is his way of trying to get a little bit of credit so that he can go later. Oh yes, I helped Dumbledore fix the cat. When by really, and he would be truthful in saying that, but really all he's actually doing is just providing the room.
Again, it's a very Lockhart thing that he would do. It's very fitting.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we saw these for the first time, I think last episode, but in this episode we see more of these hints that something is wrong with Jenny. Because,
Mm-hmm.
Jenny is the one who Tom Riddle is using to open up the Chamber of Secrets. But there's these two moments in the chapter, throughout these chapters, where it's, again, something seems to be going on with her. The first was the fact that she was, like, noticeably bothered by what happened with Mrs. Norris, more so than almost anybody else. And, Ron's trying to comfort her, and it doesn't happen that much. But the fact that she's so bothered by this, we're led to believe that it's because she loves cats, as Percy says, as Ron says. But in reality, she feels guilty because she's the one who sicked the cat onto Mrs. Norris. Edit. But anyway, and then the other moments have it here. This is like blatant and kind of obvious when this is one thing I love about these books. When you go and reread them, you catch these things now because she'll leave hints everywhere of who the villain is or what the secret is. And so in this moment when Percy is confronting Ron, he says, that's what I told Jenny, but she still seems to think you're going to be expelled. I've never seen her so upset, crying her eyes out. You might think of her. And this was just after they were talking about like the Chamber of Secrets being opened. And he literally says the words, you might think of her. And so it's like, she is the culprit. It's like somewhat obviously stated for the reader.
It's kind of her.
Mm-hmm. Did you read the movie? Did you read the book first or watch the movie first?
I watched the movies first and then read the books.
So I feel like watching the movie, there's no way to guess that it was Jenny the whole
No,
time.
you don't. That's what I was going to say. You don't really get that vibe off of it from the movie.
And it's like at the end, it's just like, that you see her at the beginning of the movie. She stands up for Harry in front of Malfoy in the bookstore, whatever it's called. People will yell at me for that. But then it's like she just disappears for like the whole movie until all of a sudden you're in the Chamber of Secrets and it's like, oh shoot, Jenny's a character again.
Yeah, you kind of remember her again.
We did mention earlier too that in there was one moment I was talking about the paint in the movie. It said that it's blood, and we're told that Jenny uses the blood of the roosters that she kills to draw with the blood when she's like entranced. But you don't know that it's roosters in the normal movie because it's a deleted scene that Hagrid's like walking around being like, somebody killed all my roosters. But anyway, other than that, anything else you wanted to say about Jenny?
No, I don't think so.
Cool. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that there's this like Salazar Slytherin theory that I've heard about. And so again, like on a surface level read, it just sounds like, this dude is a blood purist and doesn't want people who are different from him to be in the school. But I've heard another theory about why he didn't want Muggleborns in the school. And you see this line in this chapter where he says, Professor Binz is explaining that it's not because necessarily their blood status that he doesn't like. The reasoning that is given is that Salazar said that they weren't trustworthy given what was like all the persecution that wizards were going through with the Muggles, because it's like in the medieval ages, it's the time of that's a witch, burn her, like a killer, throw her in the water, drown her, whatever. And so there is a fan theory that I've heard before. I didn't come up with this myself, but I've heard about this theory that, and it adds a cool bit of nuance. I'm not one of those people that says a villain has to be layered. Some people say you can't just be evil for the sake of evil. That's not interesting. I don't care about that. A good villain's a good villain. But it does add some more nuance to say that perhaps Salazar had a problem with Muggleborns, not because they were Muggleborn, like in and of themselves, but because those types of people might tell their parents what's going on, and their parents would persecute the wizards.
They wouldn't like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting theory. I wonder if, there's a lot of noise in the fandom wanting them to make like a spinoff about the founders, whether it's a book or a movie or TV show. I think that'd be something cool to do. And that could be something
that would be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be something they'd play with. I hope they would. But anyway, I wrote, was Lockhart trying to sabotage Harry? So like, I feel like he was in the scene when he messes with his arm, rather than actually help him. He's like, he might have intentionally hurt Harry because there's been some lines about Harry being more famous than him. Hagrid told him, Harry's more famous than you without even trying, so maybe Lockhart was getting a little bit jealous there. A lot of noise. Maybe. And we get a lot of the gossip going around that maybe Harry's the heir of Slytherin. And so Lockhart could say he attacked the heir of Slytherin and like ruined his arm. It's more stuff that.
It would make him look a little better.
And then my last question in the restricted section. So at the end of the chapter, Colin Creevy's camera, he has that camera. And when they open it up, it's like that scene in the movie. They open it up and steam billows out and everything's melted on the inside. And so the basilisk ruined the photo in the camera. And I'm wondering, let's just say hypothetically, the picture was able to take and that you could print out the film. We know that the look of a basilisk can kill, but that what's happening to all these students, the reason they're not dying is that they're not looking the basilisk directly in the eye. It's either through glass, through water, through a ghost, whatever. I wonder if you had a picture of a basilisk, like with just with its eyes in the photo, could the photo petrify people? Kind of like Medusa's head turning people
That
to
would be
stones.
kind of interesting.
Yeah, I never thought of that before. So I was like, if they were able to make this, would it work? Could it also be used? And then you just put those up everywhere.
I think it would kind of make if that did happen, that would create like a lot of more problems for
It
them.
definitely would. Yeah, nobody's
Yeah.
safe now.
Yeah, nobody's safe.
But anyway, that's all I got in the restricted section. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think you covered it.
Well, fantastic. Taylor,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun.
Good. Well, listeners, thank you so much for listening. We loved having you on. Again, go check out Taylor's stuff. It'll be in the her social media stuff will be in the show notes. And come on back. And yeah, talk to you later. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Retold. Artwork for this podcast was created by Rachel Ortlip. Music was created by Taylor Jarvis. And the Retold podcast is produced by me. That's right. I made this.